YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Something a little different today. We're making mock drafts all the time here. My mock drafts here on the channel. We have a recent one up, actually. But Todd McShay of ESPN had his first mock draft here as the offseason sort of approaches, players declaring for the draft. So I wanted to react to it, kind of break it down here. It's an interesting one for sure. Also, in this video at the end, I'll put a timestamp in there. I'll have my updated Week 15 rookie rankings. Not too many changes this week, but we do update those every week. So kind of a two-parter in this video. So follow us on Twitter. We got news, rumors, and updates constantly on there. There's also a link pinned in the comments for that, as well as our sponsors, GLD Shop, Liquid IV, code GOAT. Rocking this Micah Parsons, the same one he wears actually in-game. Chain from the GLD shop. So they have NFL team logos and jersey pendants like this Micah Parsons one. So cool stuff. Links pinned in the comments. So yeah, again, starting this video with breaking down this updated McShay mock. And then at the end of this video, you can skim through if you want. There's a timestamp, my updated rookie rankings, but again, not too many changes from last time. So decided to combine the two here. But so McShay had Bryce Young going first overall to the Houston Texans, who currently have the first overall pick. This is exactly what I had in my most recent mock. And as of right now, I think it would happen. So it makes sense. I do keep hearing that teams really like Will Levis and his upside, a little bit more of a project though. And he was a little underwhelming this year, but I keep hearing that. So I think most people want to go Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, then Will Levis. But right now it feels like this pick right here with the Texans, it will either be Young or Levis at this early stage. But yeah, I could agree with McShay with that pick there. Second pick, which is the Seattle Seahawks from the Broncos. So the Seahawks looking pretty good with the second overall pick. Jalen Carter, who you could debate is the best player in the draft, goes to here, which my last mock was the order last week. So the Bears were 2, and I had the Bears taking Jalen Carter, but with the updated order, Carter, the Seahawks 2. Yeah, this could be Carter. This could be Will Anderson. Or it could be a quarterback. Geno Smith's been playing very well. And I think the Seahawks really want to extend him. But he's a little up there in age. Do you try to find that guy of the future at the same time and maybe extending Geno to a 1, 2, maybe 3-year deal? That's also a possibility. But can't go wrong with Jalen Carter here. Who is a crazy good interior defensive lineman prospect that can move around a bit. I mean, there's just not too many guys like this in every draft at all. So should be a top player, an elite prospect for sure. But he has him going to the Seattle Seahawks, second overall. So the Bears currently have the third overall pick. Will Anderson Jr., the edge rusher. It says linebacker. He played more of a 3-4 linebacker, which is an edge rusher. Definitely think he can play 4-3 end. He's a little on the lighter side maybe, but has the physicality because the Bears did switch to a 4-3 this year. But I think Will Anderson fits any scheme as an edge rusher, and he's a very good one, another elite prospect. Question here is, would the Bears trade back or would they take Will Anderson? In this scenario, that's kind of what I'm asking here. Jalen Carter off the board. Will they take Will Anderson or will they trade down, get more picks? I actually think it's tough to pass on that type of pass rusher elite prospect. I think the Bears would strongly consider trading back. I think Eberflus, you've seen his defenses in the past been very, very good, and they really haven't valued edge like the rest of the league has. So they may trade down, get more picks. They might value that more is what I'm saying. Jalen Carter, on the other hand, would be a different story. If he was there, I think they would take him. I think they're looking for that interior guy. Eberflus is going to value that very much. So if Carter's there, I think they take him. In this scenario, which no trade backs, gets a little messy if you do trades in mocks right now, I think they would trade down. But Will Anderson would be that option if they don't, which there's no trades, again, in this mock. Lions, fourth pick, takes CJ Stroud. So we're fresh off a week that kind of made that a debate. Like, I've been mocking the Lions quarterbacks, and I still think it's possible because when are the Lions going to have this opportunity? I mean, the Rams pick is very high. And the Lions got, when they're going to have this opportunity, it looks like they're going forward. They're taking steps forward, so they might be not picking early anywhere, in the near future, perhaps. So they very well could go quarterback. In this scenario, they have their choice of Stroud and Levis. They take Stroud, which I definitely could see. But Goff just continues to play well. He played very well against the Vikings last week. He's been a top 10 quarterback this year, so they just continue to draft skill position players or other players here, which they've been doing very well. It's a possibility. The best player available might be a quarterback in this scenario, though, because you look at Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, gone. Offensive lineman, definitely worthy of this pick. Line's a pretty damn good offensive line. And then you have, there's some corners that we'll talk about. I thought it was a little surprising that McShay had them pretty far down there, so that was a little surprising. But corner could be an option here as well, or the quarterback like C.J. Stroud, which I can't really disagree with this pick, could do it. People, do wonder about the Ohio State quarterbacks. Have they really worked out? I don't think you can kind of label the next quarterback like the last one or the one before that just because he went to Ohio State. But there are a lot of schemed up things, receivers getting wide open where they have the best receivers in the country usually. So actually could understand the argument. I think people kind of word it wrong, though. Like people want to say just because he's Ohio State quarterback. That's really not the case. Look what's going on the field. It's going to be harder in the NFL, which it should be, for a guy like C.J. Stroud. But he has the talent. He definitely has the talent there. Fifth pick, Bijan Robinson, Texas running back, going to the Eagles. That pick from the Saints. I like that he did this. I've been moving Robinson around a bit. I've had him to the Eagles with the earlier pick in the past. Eagles fans or just fans in general were not happy about it. They thought it was too early for a running back. I think I had a couple people saying the Eagles will not take a running back in the first round. And then I mocked him just inside the top 10 or around 10, around 8 in the past, and people were complaining that their team, they didn't want a running back, and it's just way too early for a running back. So I'm glad that somebody else did this here. And I'm not going to guarantee he's going to go top 10, but he has the talent. It's just not a running back. It's not the same running back class. This is not the same running back. I think this is a guy that can be a Pro Bowler pretty early on with his running ability, but his pass catching ability as well. So even making plays down the field, which is very impressive. So the Eagles, pretty complete team, just looking to get better. Miles Sanders is pretty good this year. I do think their style of play, Hurts' running ability does open things up for the running back. So if you get a guy like Robinson, I think they'd be even better. And you're looking out for the future, looking out for right now. So I do think, and the Eagles were looking for a running back at the trade deadline. Nothing happened there, but I thought this pick made sense. I know it's weird seeing a running back at pick 5, but it actually makes some sense. He's a tough one to deal with when making mock drafts, though, because there are teams that all of a sudden it gets to a point where none of these teams are going to take a running back. As good as Robinson is, there's a stretch of teams they're just not going to take a running back, so he ends up sliding pretty damn far. So that's why it's a little tricky, far in the first round, I should say. So that's why it's a little tricky, but I like this one. Will Levis, pick 6, goes to the Atlanta Falcons. This makes a lot of sense to me. I know there's a lot of people. There's more people that are anti-Will Levis right now than are for Will Levis. A lot of fans are anti-Will Levis, and I think it's just based on his numbers this year, or maybe they've seen, videos of his interceptions, something like that. I don't know if, a whole lot of people have actually watched. I'm sure once somebody's team takes Will Levis, they'll be all for it. That's usually how it goes, unfortunately. But, people change their mind there. But I like this. Falcons still looking for that quarterback of the future. We'll see Ritter. He's playing his first game this weekend, actually. He's a third round pick for a reason. Of course, he has some upside, but is he the answer? Is he the guy long term? I guess we'll find out, but there's a possibility to get a lot better here. Levis does have the upside. Kentucky had a very poor offensive line this year. The play calling was pretty brutal. They lost their offensive coordinator to the Rams, and he's actually coming back to Kentucky now that Levis is gone. So he would have been much better off with the same offense coordinator. So kind of just move it, just a new offense coordinator a year later. And I think bad play calling. Of course, the play calling was trying to work around the offensive line, struggling a bit. So it was tough for Levis. I think he has a lot more upside in the NFL. He could be better in the NFL. He's got to work on some things, but you can see the upside. Not every good quarterback in the NFL had the best stats in college, so you have to remember that as well. I like this one. I thought it made some sense here. Peter Skoronski, Northwestern, to the Colts. I believe I had this in my last mock draft as well. Skoronski, some people like him at guard just because of his size, his build. They like him at guard, but he's been playing very, very well at tackle. Just like Rashawn Slater. Some people, for some reason, had him at guard. I liked him at tackle. He's worked out. No, he's injured this year, but he's worked out as a tackle. So another Northwestern, and he happened to be from Northwestern as well. So another Northwestern tackle. Skoronski goes to the Colts. Makes sense to me. I mean, I had it too. Colts, they're probably looking for the quarterback of the future, which means probably from the draft, enough dealing with the veteran guys that are kind of declining. But I think they're more focused on making that offensive line great again, because it's really taking some big step downs here. So I think that's kind of where their focus could be first. Let's get this offensive line together, then get the quarterback. Tough part is they kind of had the offensive line together, then they were kind of searching for the quarterback. It hasn't really worked out. A few years later, offensive lines kind of went south a little bit. So, could you run that back? I think if you add young guys like Skoronski, I think it should stay very solid for a long time there. So another pick that made sense. Then number 8 was Tyree Wilson, the Texas Tech edge rusher, to the Raiders. Could the Raiders go pass rush? Invested a lot of value. By value, I mean money, but with the 8th overall pick, that's value as well. But they just invested a lot of value in Max Crosby when their pass rush unit, Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, just this offseason. But Chandler Jones hasn't really worked out that great. And Wilson could move around a bit. Do you put him at do you slide him inside those guys? I like him more off the edge. Could with the Raiders making this pick, could it be Crosby and Wilson for the future? Looks pretty good. They could go that route. Maybe it's not all about need. You can't reach for need. I'm always been all for that. Anti-reaching for need. But yeah, if we're talking need, they could use a defensive tackle. They could use a corner pretty bad. They could use almost anything on defense. Honestly. Do they take a look at the offensive line? So the Raiders are a tricky one here, but Wilson definitely worthy of the pick. I'm a big fan of his. Steelers get another offensive lineman, Paris Johnson Jr., who could play guard or tackle. Seen him play guard at a high level in the past. Seen him play tackle at a high level this year. Steelers offensive line played a little bit better than expected. They could be better run blocking. They're a little underwhelming run blocking this year. But pass protection, a little better than expected. They're still allowing a bit of pressure. Obviously, so still not great, maybe not even good. So they add another piece there at Paris Johnson Jr. They are pretty stubborn when it comes to their offensive linemen, kind of insisting on what they have right now. And they have a lot of versatile guys that can kind of play. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Or is he a center? Is he a guard? So they have kind of some guys like that. Maybe they'll like Johnson Jr. because of that as well, guard or tackle. Like his upside as a tackle here. But I could see the Steelers going that route. Brian Bruze, Clemson defensive tackle. This is to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals definitely could use another defensive lineman. J.J. Watt is going to be a free agent. Little different style player, obviously, but definitely could use a D tackle in there. And that Vance Joseph defense could use a pass rusher as well. Could use a corner. Need some offensive line that's showing up right now. Could they go with like a Broderick Jones here, Georgia offensive lineman? But they could use that D tackle. So this kind of made some sense as well. And then we got a few picks. We go one by one. Panthers take Anthony Richardson, which, he's a tricky one to mock right now. I mocked him in the first round last time. Before that, I wasn't doing that. He's got a ways to go in terms of a passer. The running ability is crazy good right now, obviously. But he has the arm talent, too. It's just, reading defenses, the accuracy, those things he kind of needs to work on a little bit. But, maybe he got some feedback, some good feedback, and that's why he declared for the draft, because maybe it was a little surprising he declared for the draft. So he could go here. Panthers take Anthony Richardson. It's a project for the Panthers. They've been dealing with projects for a bit. It's tough because the Panthers still do need that quarterback of the future, but they're picking 11. They've been winning some games, so that's a tough one there. Richardson, there'll be a lot of debates. I've seen people pretty split. A lot of people really, really like him. I think any quarterback that is very, very good at running, people kind of hype up, maybe a little too much, and they get very hyped on that type of player. But they does need to work on some things as a passer, but he is an electrifying runner. Texans at pick 12 going Michael Mayer. I kind of like this one as well because they've been looking for a tight end. They definitely need that tight end. You pair him with Bryce Young, who they just drafted in this scenario with the first overall pick. I did mock this once, and some people had an issue with it. It seemed like Texans fans, but they taking a tight end at 12. That's probably what they'll say. But Mayer's a very good tight end, obviously, breaking records at Notre Dame, receptions and touchdowns in 3 years. And Notre Dame's been pumping out tight ends for a long, long time. But very physical as well. So I like that pick. I've done it before. I've had that mock before. Jags taking Quentin Johnston, the TCU receiver, was a big standout this year. Obviously, a contested catch guy, big body guy, down the field especially. I don't know about Jags going receiver. Can't really. I'm not going to rule anything out. It's the draft, but they are getting Calvin Ridley in there. Don't forget that. But because of that trade, so he's going to be coming in next year when he's not suspended anymore. As long as he's not, but that's how it's supposed to be, only the year. And they have a few other receivers, maybe more likely to go offensive line. Some of the corners are still available. But, yeah, so I don't know if I really see the receiver there. Packers taking Miles Murphy, who just declared the other day, defensive end from Clemson. A lot of upside there, very young, physical. I don't know if he necessarily fits the Packers defense. I think they would make it work, though. I like him more strictly as a 4-3 end. But I thought Rashawn Gary was kind of be more of that, too. So they really made him work out. So I don't know if the Packers are really, when it comes to the pass rush, I think they're just more worried about just getting the best guy they can get, a guy with a lot of upside. So it is kind of reminding me of the Rashawn Gary type pick, because Gary was an upside guy that most thought would maybe be more of a 4-3M, but he goes at 3-4 defensive Packers, and right away he's a little underwhelming, and now he's very, very good. So it kind of reminds me of that. So first glance, I'm like, I don't know. Would they do it? Do they see him as a fit? But there are some things that kind of make sense there. Patriots, which their offensive line has been so good, but then this year, especially recently, starting to go south a bit. We saw them draft Cole Strange at guard last year. So they could kind of focus on that tackle. They definitely need to focus on tackle this upcoming year. So Broderick Jones of Georgia is still sitting there. We've seen a couple other tackles come off the board. Jones is kind of in their category too. So I was surprised, not super shocked, but I was a little surprised he dropped this far to number 15. I think that's a really good pick if he's there. The Patriots taking him. Next. 5 picks here. Lions go Joey Porter Jr., so they took a quarterback. Now they take that corner. They have a few corners that can play. They're a little hot and cold, though. Giving up a lot of passing yards. Joey Porter Jr. Could help them out there, adding him to the mix. Very good year at Penn State. See the length, see the physicality, a lot of pass deflections as well. The Jets go Cyrus Torrance, the guard from Florida. This is tricky, too. Because they signed Laken Tomlinson last offseason. They have Elijah Vera Tucker, who was looking like a future Pro Bowl guard. So first glance, it does look like they're set at guard as long as they're healthy. Like, not only set, but really good if healthy. But Elijah Vera Tucker filled in at tackle when guys got injured this year. And he has played tackle in college. He played at USC, and he looked pretty good there. He looked pretty good. So this is going to come down to where they want to put Elijah Vera Tucker moving forward. I would assume they would put him back at guard and just roll him and Laken Tomlinson at guard. Maybe look for another tackle. I think with this pick, McShay might be saying tackle for Elijah Vera Tucker, and they take Osiris Torrance, who is probably the best guard in the class, by far the best guard in the class. But why I say probably is because some of those tackles can play guard. Paris Johnson Jr. did play guard, played at a high level. I could see a team taking him for that. People are saying Skoronski guard. I think most likely he plays tackle. Broderick Jones probably plays tackle. So it could be Paris Johnson Jr. being the best guard, really. But as we sit right now, like where we're listing guys, Torrance is probably the best guard, from Florida here. So the Jets, if they took him, it would probably be because Vera Tucker will be playing tackle. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't know if I really agree with that one. Another one I don't really agree with, Seahawks taking Brian Branch, a safety from Alabama. Not really a safety, like your just typical safety. I mean, he's lined up at both safety spots. He's lined up at corner, mainly inside, outside. Kind of let him roam around a bit as well. But so, I think team's going to bring him in, and they're going to move him around a bit. They may play him in a slot possibly a bit. Could see that. But the main issue here is I like Branch in a heavy man scheme. I think he's very, very good where he stands out in man coverage wherever he's lined up. Wherever he's lined up. And Seahawks run a ton of zone. They've been the last several years, and they are this year as well. Maybe they want to switch to more man coverage. That's possible. Do they put him in the slot then? I think if they took him, that'd probably be likely the case. They got two solid young corners in there. They got safeties with Diggs and Adams. But then Adams is kind of, roam around, get in the box, kind of that rover type guy. And then Branch, again, is heavy man coverage. So I don't really love it. I don't really love it there. If they did take Branch, I'd be like, they're kind of switching things up. That's what I would say on draft day. So that was two in a row that I wasn't really thrilled with, but there's no right or wrong right now. Buccaneers, Christian Gonzalez, cornerback from Oregon. I mentioned earlier in this video that I was very, very shocked at the corner slipping through, and here we go. The second corner taken. He had Joey Porter Jr. going first at 16, which I think is realistic. But Christian Gonzalez, I like him a lot. I think this is a top 10 pick here, if not top 12. Don't think he gets by the top 15. I guess it'll depend on what he runs because the combine, that's not everything. But 40-yard dashes actually do matter very much for the corners. But he seems long, athletic. I think he'll test better and maybe faster than what he looks. But he looks plenty fast enough. But very smooth movement when it comes to the footwork and the hips. Just a natural lockdown type guy at Colorado and Oregon this past year. So he ends up sliding through. So this is the Buccaneers just going with the best value here, perhaps, which is a good pick. The Buccaneers have a number of corners, actually. They even drafted Zion McCollum, who, maybe pretty promising, raw corner prospect, who's got some playing time and who's a depth guy. So they actually have some guys, but they've been two things. They've been getting really beat up at the position, really beat up. And it's kind of cost him at times. Maybe not this year. It's more on the offense this year. But and then Gonzalez is maybe just too good to pass. A really good football player here at a pretty important position. So, maybe not like everyone, the one that people are mocking a lot. Maybe it's a little rare, but he can make it make sense here. Giants going Jordan Addison. Definitely could see this. The Giants definitely need another receiver. They're short because of injuries, and they'll also have some free agents coming up, and there's some guys that they have that are just kind of disappointing. They may cut Galladay, for an example. So Addison, kind of a do-it-all, shifty separator, home run hitting receiver. I definitely think they'll like. Here. I think this could be it's just a Giants guy, whether it's the coaching staff, I think will like him, and I think their GM, Joe Shane, would actually like him as well. So it just feels like a good fit. If he's there, he could go much earlier. This is the second receiver. Quentin Johnson went off the board. Your separators, in my opinion, your the better separators are going to go earlier. They're going to be the first receivers taken. So Addison, Smith, and Jigba, I think guys like that maybe have a better chance to going being the first receiver. I know a lot of people are on the Johnston train there. It's possible. So again with the corners, Kelee Ringo is a very, very good man coverage corner, good in press. Just looks like a day one starting NFL corner. I think it's going to go much earlier in this. So the Commanders grab Ringo here, which is just really, really good value. Their defense looks really good. They could go linebacker. They could go corner. Again, how long is Fuller going to be around for? They could save a bit of money by moving on from him, but I just don't think they do. William Jackson, they wanted him to work out. That's why they signed him to a big contract and ended up having to release him. It was weird because it came out that he wanted to go somewhere else because he wanted a more man coverage, defense that played more man, but the Commanders play a bit of it. They're not going to stick to one thing. It's why their defense is so good, but they play some man. So that was interesting. Ringo, a man coverage guy, but can mix it up a bit. I like this. I don't think Ringo's going to be here at 21 though. I just don't. So just like Christian Gonzalez. So those corners, some good ones in this draft. Titans go Jackson Smith and Jigba, receiver from Ohio State. So Titans haven't really valued receiver that much. They did fire their GM, John Robinson. But I think what didn't value the receiver position, I thought was their offensive system. I don't know if it was fully John Robinson, but the whole A.J. Brown thing doesn't look too great. maybe a big reason he got fired. So maybe they can look to value the receiver, try to get that guy back. So you got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who only played in 3 games this year, not even the full 3 games, obviously, because of injury. He was kind of playing it safe, not coming back. But last year, especially at the end of last year, was very, very good. So we kind of got to go off that, obviously. And during most last year, he was playing, or pretty much all of it, he was playing behind 2 first-round receivers that are tearing up the NFL right now, who are the best rookie receivers in the NFL right now. So pretty good look for the Ohio State receivers here. So the Titans grab that receiver, finally value it again. Chargers go Cam Smith, cornerback from South Carolina. Like Cam Smith a lot. He is declared. He's sitting out of the bowl game as well. Lockdown guy, physical, could be good and press. South Carolina seems to be getting some of those guys out there recently. Some good corners there. And Chargers, though, interesting because they have a number of corners. The problem is they've been a little underwhelming. J.C. Jackson, such a small sample size with the Chargers. He was pretty damn underwhelming, though, and now he got injured. Asante Samuel Jr., maybe we thought a little bit more of a step up, but a solid young corner. And they do have Michael Davis, who's been filling in since J.C. Jackson's been out, and he's decent as well. So they have a number of corners. They like using several of them. We'll even see the Chargers have an extra, not just a nickel, but an extra DB out there sometimes, which they kind of want to do, but they're a little beat up. It's kind of where college was heading. So the NFL, some teams starting to do that a little bit. We saw the Bengals do that in the AFC Championship against the Chiefs last year, and it worked out for them in the second half. So maybe they just want to load up on corners. I think they may focus on something else, though. My opinion. This was an interesting one that I actually, I don't know if I would mock it, but I can get behind here. So this is an interesting one. McShay is mocking the Broncos, Jahmyr Gibbs, running back from Alabama. Of course, they have Javonte Williams, who's an absolute stud. I'm a huge Javonte Williams guy. But he was injured this year, messed up his knee pretty badly. And will he be ready week 1 next year? So that could be the reason. I don't really think that's the reason for McShay having Gibbs go to the Broncos. I think they really value the 1-2 punch, and Gibbs having that crazy good receiving ability adds on to that. So kind of building like the best running duo in football for the future, perhaps. And they're going to insist on Russell Wilson. He's been pretty bad this year. They're going to have to insist on him. And kind of going back to when he was good in Seattle, they were actually more of a run-first team, especially in the first half. Run the ball, wear the other team out, win the time of possession, and open up the pass game, open up the play action. People always wondered why they did that. When you have Russell Wilson, why aren't they a pass-first team? Why do they run the ball so much? Maybe we see why now, perhaps. But so kind of focus on the just building that great backfield. So that's not a common mock pick, but I like it. I actually like it. Ravens go Clark Phillips, who recently declared as well. Very good corner from Utah, all over the place, all over the field this year. Multiple interceptions, had games with multiple interceptions. Ravens definitely could use a corner going forward. Marcus Peters on the way out. Just could use a piece anyways, a piece at cornerback, the cornerback position. So I do like Phillips. Everyone's looking for those like 6'2", 6'1", super long arm corners right now. I don't know if that's really Phillips. He's going to be under 6 feet. I guess pretty good arm length for his height. But he isn't that crazy length. Look at last year, Sauce, Woolens dominating. These are lengthy guys. So that's really the only knock on Phillips, who's a very good corner though. Bengals is an interesting one as well. Devon Witherspoon, the corner from Illinois, who's an interesting prospect. I think he's a little raw, even though he had a really good year for Illinois, who was a pretty standout defense. He's big, he's physical, he's athletic. He's long. He has some eye-popping, like, wow moments on tape. He is a little raw, though. I think he kind of relies on his size, athleticism. Sometimes you see him kind of get turned around. Man coverage, a guy gives him a double move or just uses the straight speed down the sideline or just kind of gives him a double move, like a post corner, just hitting that post. He could get a little turned around. Maybe it's the footwork, so he opening up the hips, sometimes standing too tall. I did notice that. It's a guy that I kind of was really watching in live games because he has those popping moments earlier in years, so maybe want to watch him a little bit more. So it's a little tricky with him. So he might not be ready right away, but we thought the same thing, a prospect that was similar that we really, really liked in Tariq Woolen, who we loved, but it's like, he might be a little raw right away, but ends up he's looking like a veteran guy right now. So Some teams will probably be very, very high on Witherspoon, where they'll take him late first round. And there's some teams that are like, yeah, we're going to have to work with this guy a lot. I'd be comfortable taking him like in the third round. So there might be teams like pretty split on a guy like Witherspoon there. The Bengals got some injuries there. Could look to upgrade over Apple as it is. Cam Taylor-Britt's looking pretty good recently, though. I'd imagine Daxton Hill plays free safety next year, which is going to be interesting. If Jesse Bates is gone, I think that was the plan. So they could look at another corner. Could see it. Vikings go Zay Flowers, receiver in Boston College, who had a really good year. Little undersized. Size isn't really the biggest thing for receivers these days. You just want to see a guy that can get separation, could read coverages, could use his speed after the catch, which Flowers could do those things. I think more likely he's a second-round pick. More likely. We are at the end of the first round here, though. Vikings can make this this offense even more explosive. There was rumors they were interested in a guy like Brandon Cooks at the deadline. I don't know how true that is. So they could look to add a guy like that, Zay Flowers here. They do have Jefferson, maybe the best in the league, and then Thielen, and Osborne's been pretty solid. Thielen is declining a little bit, though. So do they focus on corner here, maybe? Their defense hasn't been great this year, so that's a possibility as well. But Flowers kind of an interesting one there. Bills go Antonio Johnson, who just declared yesterday, actually. Defensive back from A&M. I don't really agree with this one either. To me, Antonio Johnson is more of like a slot box type guy, kind of roaming around near the line of scrimmage. He's one of those defensive backs, in my opinion. Could play that slot corner. Just one of those types of guy. He's not going to play. I don't think he's going to replace Hyde or Poyer. In this case, I don't see that like that type of guy. I think he's more of that slot type of guy. Could you move him to corner? Possibly. I don't really see it though. But yeah, they're not really. I don't know if the Bills are looking for that box type guy that's almost like a weak side linebacker, which he could be. But again, he also could be that slot corner, nickel corner type guy. I don't know if he can be. They're looking for that type of guy. And in terms of like the slot type of guy, they have Teron Johnson already, who's pretty solid. So I just don't really love the fit there, in my opinion. And then you got the Cowboys at 29. Lucas Van Ness, who's an interesting one from Iowa, defensive end, fits that 4-3 end spot for the Cowboys. Which again, remember Parsons moves around a bit, so they could be looking for another guy like that. Lawrence, how long is he going to be around for? Very good, obviously. And they have Dorrance Armstrong, so they have some pieces. They couldn't even afford to keep Basham on there, and he's a decent depth piece. Because they have so many pieces. But they could look to add another one. Could Van Ness slide into a 3 technique? I wouldn't rule that out. He kind of came out of nowhere this year. He didn't even start, actually, for Iowa. But very, very productive. Wouldn't rule it out. I think the Cowboys be focused on something else. Corner, maybe even safety, but corner. Linebacker, maybe replacing Van Der Esch, perhaps. Offensive line, because how beat up they get there. Receiver, maybe more likely. It's just hard. It is hard. What some people like to do a lot is just go off the order of their biggest needs, and those ones right there. So I don't want to do that because that's not what it's about. Cowboys a great example. Everyone was pounding the table for a corner. They take Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons was the best player available, though, so that made a lot of sense. It wasn't their biggest need, so it's worked out for them. Chiefs go Jared Verse. I've had this at times as well. Very solid, long defensive end. Transferred from Albany. Was so good there. Goes to Florida State. And you see week 1 against LSU, you see it right away. You see the talent is there right away. Knows how to use his length. Just looks like an NFL pass rusher. It's crazy, too, just being in, FBS football for 1 year. So I like the fit there. Chiefs did just draft Karl Aftis last year, who's been, this past draft, I should say, who's a rookie this year, has been pretty solid. And they have Frank Clark, who's solid, but they have a decision to make with him because he has a contract where he could free a lot of space up. So they could grab Verse. I think that makes sense. And another pass rusher here, which this would be great. I think the Eagles would love this. Isaiah Foskey of Notre Dame, who actually broke the Notre Dame career sack record, which is pretty impressive. Broke Justin Tuck's record. But yeah, the Eagles are always looking to add pass rushers. We know that. And Robert Quinn is kind of a rental, so he'll be gone. Brandon Graham, who's very solid still, getting up there in age, though. I know they're missing Barnett this year. Could they get him back? Will they get him back? But they're always looking for pass rushers. You get a very solid one here in Foskey. I would lie. He could be here. I could see him going 31st. He could be gone earlier. You kind of can argue both. I don't think you would get by at this point. If he is there, which I'd say probably going to be gone a little earlier. But if he is there, I think the Eagles definitely would pull the trigger there. So the Eagles go Bijan Robinson and Isaiah Foskey in the first round. That's a pretty good draft in my opinion there. So that is McShay's mock draft there. So pretty interesting one. You could see there was some that like I had, they make a lot of sense. It makes sense in the mock draft world. It's in the draft world right now. And then there were some picks that were like, at first glance, don't really make sense, but you kind of can think about it like, okay, yeah, that like, I think the prime example would be Jahmyr Gibbs to the Broncos. Would be a prime example there. And there were some things I didn't agree with. Antonio Johnson to the Bills, Brian Branch to the Seahawks. Torrance is an interesting one to the Jets. I didn't really agree with it, but if Vera Tucker moves the tackle, stays at tackle, then possibly. I think he goes back to guard though. And then I didn't agree with the corners dropping so far, especially Christian Gonzalez and Keely Ringo. So those are things I did not really agree with. So that's why it's good to kind of go over this and see what makes sense, what doesn't. But to the updated rookie rankings for Week 15. So I decided to combine these videos. There wasn't much going on with the rookie rankings this week with the movement. I kept Garrett Wilson at 1. He's been tearing it up. Sauce Gardner had a lockdown day against the Bills, against Stephon Diggs and the Bills. He had a way better outing there than he did against the Vikings, which they almost put DJ Reed kind of in charge more a little bit in that game 2 weeks ago. Tariq Woolen had a good game. It was tough moving him down one spot. It's very tough moving him down one spot. Sauce had such a lockdown day against Diggs that you kind of had to move him up, but Woolen was good. They gave up a lot of points to the Panthers. It was mainly on the ground, though, but Woolen does some things that just there's only great veteran corners do, like be able to keep your eyes on the quarterback in zone coverage and leave your zone, knowing when it's okay to leave your zone and go to a different one. Just things like that. It's just... We got 3 guys that I want to put at number 1 here: Wilson, Gardner, and Woolen. They're all like kind of back and forth. Like at the end of the year, it's only a few more weeks left. I don't know who I'm going to have at 1. It's just so tough. There's just things like that, like those plays from Woolen that I just respect so much there. But then you got Gardner just locking down top NFL corners with a bit of man coverage and a bit of zone coverage, or top NFL receivers. He wasn't really on Jefferson last week though, but Diggs he handled. Olave stays at 4. Pierce stays at 5. Productive day for Pierce. Olave had a bye. Hutchinson, tough not moving him up because he had a really good day against the Vikings too. But Olave's kind of been in that. He's still like in that category at Wilson, and I have Wilson at 1. So those top 3, top 4 guys at that 1 spot. Pierce had a productive day, so it's tough to move him down. So I didn't. Hutchinson was very good though. Walker's been either not super productive or missing. Recently was missing against the Panthers, obviously, but he stayed put. Watson had a bye, but he's been on fire lately, much better than where he started, which was with drops and injuries, but lately been fantastic. Ikem Ekwonu, we've seen him on the list before. He's kind of been moving around a little bit. He's up 9 spots to number 9. Really good outing from that Panthers offensive line, starting with the top draft pick. Martin Emerson of the Browns, blocking that Browns logo. You know what it looks like. Has been very, very solid rookie corner for the Browns, having to step up. So I've been impressed with him, but he's down 1 spot. Felt Ekwonu needed to be number 9. And super followers on Twitter get bonus content like bets, things like that. Rank every quarterback from 1 to 32 every single week. It's just a graphic, but every week I update those. Update the playoff predictions from time to time. And you get the top 25 rookies, so that's why there's some guys that were kind of in and out of these rankings. They're barely off these rankings, but in the top 25 there, so we'll update those again for our Twitter super followers. So that will do it for this video. I had a lot of fun doing this one, so let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. We update my mock drafts all the time. We have a recent one last week. We'll update one again. Still waiting for other guys to declare or not declare. And we have off-season content coming out now. We have in-season weekly picks and a lot more. So check all that out. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.